So when I do ask you guys for ideas for videos you want to see, I actually mean it. Unfortunately, the past few months have been crazy with the Euros and everything, but now I can finally get to a video request I have been wanting to do for a while. The story of Turbine Potsdam, one of the most dominant women's clubs ever. And there are a few reasons I wanted to talk about this. One being that the discourse around independent women's clubs is relevant again because of the emergence of London City Lionesses. The second reason is that Potsdam were again relegated last season to the 2 Bundesliga, and 2023 was the first time they were relegated. They managed to earn promotion back to the Frauen Bundesliga immediately that season, but couldn't stay up. Given the growth of women's football in the past few years, there's a lot of new fans who don't know the history of Turbine Potsdam. But it's a really important club in the development of women's football as a whole. The club's slow fall from glory to relegation is also important to understand as associated men's clubs start investing in their women's side. It's a story as old as time for most independent clubs in women's football. So this story really starts in the 1970s, and shockingly, there's not much footage or photos from a women's East German football club in the 1970s through 1990s. So in this video, you will be seeing my room and me more than usual. So just wanted to put that out there before we start the video. Back in 1971, Bernd Schröder was a department head at a local Potsdam energy company called EVP. Like many other German companies, EVP was a sponsor of the local football club BSG Turbine Potsdam that was founded back in 1955. Now, there are conflicting tales to what exactly happened. In one version of events, Schröder came across a slip of paper in the company hall announcing the formation of a women's team. But what seems to be the case is that he happened to be at a company dinner where a bunch of young women happened to be discussing the formation of a women's football team. Schröder, who didn't really have any managing or coaching experience in football, offered to coach the team as no one else was really available. The team got off to immediate success. They won their district championship just 1 year after they were founded. And remember, this is the 1970s. There is no Frauen Bundesliga. These clubs are very local, playing in local leagues. Schröder was ahead of his time. He started to really focus on recruiting athletes for the team, particularly track athletes, and teaching them how to play football. And he utilized his position at EVP to offer players flats. The energy company was fully backing this endeavor, and this wasn't really a thing in women's football at the time. But Schröder had a dream. He is truly a father of women's football. Remember also at this time period, Potsdam was in East Germany at the time, as Germany was not unified. East Germany finally started hosting football tournaments for its women's football clubs in 1979. Potsdam were immediately the favorites and would win their first title in 1981. For this, Bernd Schröder actually got the title of Activist of Socialist Work, and they would go on to win this tournament multiple times in the next few years, really cementing themselves as the best women's football club in East Germany. However, they were not allowed to travel for outside tournaments held in most other European countries despite being invited, because the team was not allowed by East Germany to travel to capitalistic countries. In 1989, the team won their last GDR championship. Why? The Berlin Wall fell. East and West Germany became Germany. There was no GDR. The energy company supporting the club went into financial ruin as it was previously ran under a centralized government. Many players retired, and other things associated with a changing of a country's borders and economic system. In 1990, though, the DFB founded the Frauen Bundesliga after unification. The club would then be in the 2nd division. In 1992, Schröder stepped back to become the club's manager instead of coach. They were promoted to the Frauen Bundesliga after the 1993-04 season. The club didn't have as much success as they were having back in the glory days of East Germany, and Schröder actually stepped back in to become the coach in 1997. And this was the same year that the Frauen Bundesliga actually merged its North and Southern divisions, becoming the Bundesliga we know today as just one league. The giant of the Frauen Bundesliga in the 1997-1998 season was FSV Frankfurt, led by the best player in the Bundesliga and one of the best players of all time, Birgit Prinz. Potsdam did have their own emerging stars though, Connie Poyers and Ariane Hingst. A part of why the club had such a hard start though after 2001 was because their goalkeeper, Nadine Angerer, probably the best goalkeeper ever in women's football, the only male or female goalkeeper ever to actually win FIFA World Player of the Year. Potsdam started to get better by year and year, and after 3 second-place finishes in a row, Potsdam won the Frauen Bundesliga for the first time in the 2003-04 season. A large reason for the upcoming dominance was the acquisition of a teenage Anja Mittag from her youth club in 2002. Her and Polars became dominant alongside Hinks. Not only did they win the league for the first time in 2003-2004, they also won the DFB Pokal. In 2004-2005, they actually didn't win the league, they finished third. But not only did they win the DFB Pokal that year, they won the Women's Champions League, called the UEFA Women's Cup at the time, in their first season in the competition. And to call them dominant during this run would be disrespectful. In the Champions League, they routed their group with a plus 11 goal difference, beat Trondheim's Orn 7-1 on aggregate, and defeated Djurgården 5-1 in the final over 2 legs, with Poyers, Mittag, and Wimberski scoring the goals. Those 3 actually were the top goal scorers in the whole tournament. Between 2005 and 2012, they would go on to win the league 5 more times. 4 of them were in a row from 2008-9 to 2011-12. They also won their second Champions League title in the 2009-10 season, defeating Olympique Lyon. And this season was in large part due to Nadine Kessler, one of the greatest German players of all time, being in their ranks. Defender Bianca Schmidt was a staple of this long-term success also. And the club started to really integrate international transfers near the end of their run, like Japan's Yuki Nagasato being part of their late success. The 2000s were a time of Turbine Potsdam, the East German club that did the impossible. Of course, the landscape in women's football started to change. Near the end of Potsdam's run of dominance in Germany, some men's clubs started to fund and support their women's sides more, or acquire ones in the area. By the 2011-12 season, it wasn't FCR Duisburg and FFC Frankfurt on the heels of Potsdam. It was Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg will win the league the first time in 2012-13 season. Potsdam finished second and would not win the league again. They didn't go away though. They remained a top club in Germany really until the season they're relegated, 2022-23. They are still home to some of the best footballers in Germany and abroad for many years, usually finishing 3rd or 4th in the league. Pauline Bremer, Svenja Huth, Feli Rauch were all a staple of this era of competing with the men's supported sides. Even recently, Selina Serci, Rauch, Bremer actually came from Potsdam's academy as it was producing some top German talent. They brought in huge international signings during this time also. They had a young Ada Hegerberg for the 2013-2014 season before selling her to Lyon, as well as Maren Mjelde. In 2016, Bernd Schröder retired after 45 years with the club. The legendary coach was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by the DFB. This may have been a start of a slow decline, but honestly, they were still consistent for a few years after his retirement. Schroeder's retirement didn't really affect their ability to attract talent and still place in the top 4. Leah Walty was at the club from 2013 to 2018. Lisa Evans, Sarah Zadrazal, Amanda Illestedt, and Mari Hobinger all played for Potsdam at some point during these years. However, it was clear the top talent was starting to get more and more clustered at Wolfsburg and Bayern. Wolfsburg just took Potsdam players because they could offer higher wages because they're associated with a men's club. The 2021-22 season is interesting because Potsdam finished 4th again, yet the next year got relegated. And this happened because some things in conjunction happened with each other. The summer of 2022 saw the Women's Euros in England, which caused a huge surge in interest in women's football across Europe. You started to see a lot more money being thrown in transfer fees for players, something men's clubs could afford but not Potsdam, who had already at this point gone farther than many other independent clubs at this time. In Germany, other men-supported sides like Frankfurt, Bayer Leverkusen, and Hoffenheim really started coming into their own. That summer, Potsdam lost most of their best players. In the 2022-23 season, the gap was just too much. In 2021-22, their leading scorer in the Bundesliga was Selina Churchy with 13 goals. She was then poached by Cologne that summer, and then in 2022-23, Turbine's top scorer would only have 2 goals. The last few games of the year were a foregone conclusion. They finished last in the league, 9 points below the other team relegated. And just like that, in 2023, it was the end of an era. They would be in the second division for the first time since 1994, almost 30 years. The relegation hit the women's footballing world like a truck. It truly marked that it was a new era of women's football. And it was hard seeing a club that had done so much for women's football getting knocked off. Turbine Potsdam did manage to gain promotion back the following season, but this past year were relegated again failing to win a single game in the Frauen Bundesliga. It's even more gut-wrenching though, because some other clubs who aren't really supported by a major men's club financially, like SGS Essen and Karl Zeiss Jena, have managed to stay afloat in the league for this season. Now, if you look at basically every league in Europe, the top flight will most likely have a few independent clubs. The exception to that rule the past few years has been England. However, the gap is growing between the clubs associated with men's sides who choose to invest and the independent clubs that are trying to compete monetarily but can't. The more money there is in broadcast revenue could change that and make it easier for independent clubs to invest, but right now, clubs associated with large men's sides are driving up the prices and salaries for players because they can. Aside for one exception. I don't even want to add up how much money they have spent as I'm writing this, but Michelle Kang splashed $1.6 million on Grace Gaoro. Honestly, 3D chess, weakening her other club's rival. This is why multi-club ownership should not be allowed. And there are advantages to having independent clubs because, as we see a lot of the times with clubs like Real Madrid, PSG, Manchester United even, they don't really invest enough to actually be competitive or try to, and are run in a way that doesn't really respect the players. I still don't like Lensey Lionesses though, because I think buying a bunch of players to get promoted, then just discarding them is actually, bad for the sport. And again, you all know how I feel about Kang. So it is good when an independent club does have good financial backing to create another space for players to be paid well and have competitive environment that they wouldn't have with some other men's funded clubs. But getting that finance can be hard, especially in a league that is still growing monetarily like the Bundesliga. When men's football clubs didn't want to really invest in their women's sides, clubs like Turbine Potsdam were there. Women's football would not be where it is now without Doncaster-Bell's, FFC Frankfurt before they were bought by Eintracht Frankfurt, Swedish clubs like Umeå, and of course, Turbine Potsdam, who helped create Germany the powerhouse it is in women's football. Like I said before, I do want to hear you guys and your requests, so let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learning more about Turbine Potsdam. This is an issue very, very close to my heart. Let me know what you think the status is of these independent clubs now.